This is a clip from Keith's recent visit to the Real Wealth Show. Don't forget to hit like.
It might seem high today, but right now the federal funds rate is just back where it was at the end of 2018. So, anyone that thought zero federal funds rates were going to persist for a while, needs to remember that, well, that was really an emergency measure enacted by the Fed.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what is kind of interesting about this whole thing is that mortgage rates are still historically pretty low, especially right now. They went down again. And then the Fed fund rate, we were here just a few years ago at this same rate, and there wasn't so much freaking out. It's just the speed of change that I think
Right.
Is scary for people.
Yeah, Kathy, you and I have been investing in long enough so that we do understand the historical context. In fact, the first property that I ever bought in my life, it was a fourplex where I lived in one unit and rented out the other three. That was back in 2002. And think about where we're at now with mortgage rates. It's about 5% for an owner-occupied residence, maybe 6% for a non-owner-occupied. Well, back in 2003, I took that fourplex building that I had only owned for a year, and I refinanced from 6 3/8 down to 5 3/8. So the point was, 5 3/8 was attractive enough to refinance to it. When people see a rate like that today, they think maybe they need to get away from it or something. So, it's all about your own historical context, and you're getting some here now.
Oh, yeah. We started at the 7s and we're so happy to refi to 6. And I remember when my dad was in the double digits and he was just jumping for joy when he got down to 9%. But of course, that was in the 80s. So where are you targeting now? Are there certain areas of the country where you would invest today if you were buying?
Yeah, I've really liked Florida the last few years. I mean, just personally, that's where I've focused a lot of my own buying. But yeah, classically, it's these markets in the Midwest and South. I like residential. Residential tends to do well in a downturn. Even in a recession, historically, you don't see residential real estate prices slip very much. So yeah, I really stick with residential. Always have. And, I'm really just a buy and hold investor. I'm not doing anything sophisticated. I don't have handyman skills. I don't particularly have landlording skills either. But a lot of lay people just don't understand with buy and hold real estate investing. Often it's what people classify as turnkey real estate investing that I do, still buying directly myself. A lot of people don't understand that I characterize it that real estate typically has 5 profit centers just with buy and hold real estate investing: appreciation, cash flow, your return on amortization because your tenant's paying that loan for you. Fourthly are the tax benefits. And then fifthly are those inflation profiting benefits that you get on the long-term fixed interest rate debt. Of course, I want to get that debt. I'm always buying with debt, a 75 or 80% loan, in order to get the benefits of inflation debasing that debt for me. So it's buy and hold in the Midwest and South, those areas where you tend to get a high ratio of rent income to purchase price. It's really not that thrilling or not that fancy, or you're not going to hear about me, pouring sweat equity into some 90-day flip where I made $200K. Investing ought to be pretty boring when I'm paid 5 ways. There's so many different dynamics. Some are up, some are down, and that's what I do. So in a sense, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, and any one of those 5 things would be wonderful. If all you got was somebody paying down your mortgage for you, that'd be great, But then you add on, well, there's tax benefits on top of that. Oh, wait, and the house value could go up while someone else is paying off the debt for me. It's any one of those would be wonderful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Those that come from the consumer credit world, I mean, they're just trying to buy low and sell high, which is actually harder to do than it sounds over the long term. And, maybe if you're a stock investor, you get paid a second way, maybe in addition to the appreciation appreciation. If you get a dividend paying stock, okay, you might get paid two ways at the same time. The average dividend yielding stock in the S&P 500 only gives about 2%. But yeah, most people just aren't used to up to five ways. A lot of people just don't understand all five of those that I just described like that. Real estate pays five ways.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Great perspective. All right. So you tell me what inflation triple crown means. That's a trademark of yours.
What is the inflation triple crown? That means that you benefit specifically from inflation three ways at the same time when you buy an income producing property with debt. And those three ways are you benefit from asset price inflation, debt debasement, which I touched on, and thirdly is cash flow enhancement, because in inflationary times, your cash flow typically goes up faster than the rate of inflation. And that's because your biggest expense, that mortgage principal and interest, stays fixed. So to bring some numbers to it and just explain the first of the three crowns in the inflation triple crown is how you benefit through asset price inflation. And, a lot of people use the term like, well, real estate is a really good inflation hedge. They're not wrong, but a hedge just means a defensive position. It really just means you're staying even rather than losing. You're actually profiting from inflation three ways at the same time. So if you, the investor out there, if you buy $1 million worth of real estate, you can maybe just think of that as an apartment building. Okay, you're going to put $200K down and borrow the other $800K. All right, so say inflation does its thing, and just say inflation's 10% to use easy numbers. And after 1 year, your $1 million apartment building goes up in price to $1.1 million. And maybe you're thinking, well, wait a second, how in the heck am I any better off? If my building is worth 10% more dollars and each dollar's worth 10% less, isn't that a hedge? Aren't I right back where I started? And the answer is no, because you got a loan on this property. So the capital price of the entire asset went up $100K. But remember, you've only got $200K of equity in it, skin in the game. That also went up $100K. So your equity just went from $200K to $300K. That's a 50% gain despite just 10% inflation. You just 5x'd inflation, and that's only one of the three crowns of the inflation triple crown. And some people are like, well, wait, how did that happen? That's because you got the 10% gain on both your $200K of skin in the game and the $800K that you borrowed from the bank. So that's how you're getting ahead, and that's how you profit with real estate. Again, when you have an income producing property with the loan, you do want that loan. That's how you benefit from inflation.
Music to my ears. All right. What do you mean by don't quit your daydream?
It's just a little joke I make. You might quit your day job, but don't quit your daydream. And really what it comes down to, and it's not just a joke, is that when you get enough income producing property passively, where you have a manager managing it for you, like I have several property managers, one manager in each market where I have properties managing my property for me, and they just sent me a rent income minus all expenses, that cash flow check at the end of every month. I can quit my day job and start my daydream because I've opened up enough time to do it.
Love that. And finally, financially free beats debt free.
Yeah, a lot of people just want to retire their debt, and being debt free is not such a bad place to be. But a lot of people work hard and work overtime and eat dirt for decades to retire their debt. Yeah, I'd say don't worry about that. As long as you have good fixed interest rate debt, especially like we're talking about here with real estate, where the tenant pays that debt for you, they pay all your principal, they pay all your interest, and they pay a little cash flow on top of that. That cash flow on top of that creates financial freedom, which is more important than debt freedom. Inflation is passively debasing your debt for you. So I sure wouldn't want to get involved in, for example, making extra principal payments on a mortgage. Like I wouldn't even do that on my own home. In fact, if one makes, say, an extra just $100 principal payment on their mortgage each month, basically here's what they're saying to the bank. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Banker, here's an extra $100. Don't pay me any interest on it. If I need it back, I'll pay you fees and I'll prove to you that I qualify again. So that's why I don't so much want to be debt free. I'd rather be financially free, carry debt, have my tenants and inflation debase that debt for me passively at the same time. Therefore, I'm not concerned with that debt. That's why financially free beats debt free. But that's a great question.
Well, especially if you're locked into low rates, like the 3% rates. If inflation's at 9%, you're actually ahead of the game with borrowing at just 3%. Don't pay those loans off quickly, people. Keep them and use the money elsewhere to make you more money. Okay. Well, Keith, it's always a pleasure to have you here on The Real Wealth Show. You just are a wealth of information.
I love talking about this stuff. Thanks for having me again, Kathy.